We are live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. This is the Nolan Hawkeye Anthony YouTube channel. And I thank all of you for being here, wherever you may be, and of course, however you may be listening. It's been a little while since I have recorded a video. I did that purposefully in the last couple of weeks because I wanted to, well, number one, again, there's just not a ton of news circulating. Most of the news is related to recruiting. And so I wanted to see how things were going to shape up with Iowa's official visit weekend from June 20th. Traditionally, that is their major official visit weekend date. And I made a video before kind of giving some preliminary thoughts. And then I discussed a few other things as well. But namely on the recruiting front, Iowa football 2026 class. And, from there, a few names committed. And things were starting to look better because the last video I made, I said that I was kind of pessimistic about Iowa's, recent recruiting efforts, their official visit weekend, the June 20th date. Again, I detailed that when you have the June 20th date, it's a double-edged sword. And I guess every team faces this in one way, shape, or form or another. But when you have June 20th, usually the recruits that you're in on, there are other schools that are going to have first crack at landing the commitment. They're going to have first crack at, putting together a nice NIL package, putting together a nice vision for the future for the recruit. And you may not even get the chance to have that recruit on campus. Not only is that the case for uncommitted players, but it's also the case for committed. Now, it's way more of an issue for uncommitted players, but even for the players that are committed, and this was also an aspect of me being pessimistic about the recent, last 4 to 5 months of Iowa football recruiting. You might have some decommitments, as Iowa did with high 3-star being recruited more and more of late as time goes on, Cash Herrera out of the San Diego area, who I thought was a great, phenomenal get for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Not by any means Arch Manning or anything like that, but for Iowa and Tim Lester, everything considered, a solid get. And of course, Indiana came in and swooped in and stole that commitment. There are some other behind the scenes stuff with that story. You might know better than I as far as that goes. I'm not always as tuned in for the behind the scenes stuff. But nonetheless, so that is a possibility. Now, for Iowa, usually once they get a commitment, I would say they have a really good shot at keeping that commitment. And here's why. And this is attached to the double-edged sword entendre of the June 20th official visit weekend. Just like you may not even get the chance, if a recruit has not committed by June 20th, you're also going to probably get the last chance. And that means that they're a much more methodical, patient recruit that maybe has a decent head on their shoulders and doesn't make, decisions on a whim, whimsical decisions. And so those are the types of recruits that you want. Now, it's not a hard and fast rule with that, but the logic follows. Okay. And so that is kind of the nature of the June 20th official visit weekend. And the way things were looking, I just was not very optimistic. So, by the way, guys, hit that subscribe button. Let's get this channel to 2,000 subscribers by the time the season rolls around. By the way, happy 4th of July. I totally forgot to say that. I am recording this on the 4th. I'm going to record this and go continue my fourth. But I've literally been waiting all day for the commitment that I'm going to be detailing to come down so I could give an analysis of Iowa football recruiting post official visit weekend. So without further ado, let's get into this. So here we are, guys. This is the official visit. Actually, this is the commitments. These are the commitments of all the Iowa Hawkeye players. I actually want to go back to the official visit weekend. I think that'll give a better encapsulation as well as some of the other visits before we go to the commitment list and I give you guys kind of my analysis of where things stand. But, pretty much usually Iowa has anywhere from, I would say, 15 to 22 official visitors, including guys that are already committed for the June 20th. This time they only had 13, and one was a late addition in Jeremiah Gray. Iowa, is still recruiting him. We'll see what happens with that. He's a late riser, 6'7", 250-pound D lineman, currently committed to Cincinnati. But pretty much all the official visitors were already committed. Now, that gave Iowa a slight advantage in that the two uncommitted guys in CJ Hester and Darion Jones, both DBs, they could put their full weight behind. And Jeremiah Gray, actually, who's, you guys, he's committed to Cincinnati, but you guys get my point. And I thought it was a long shot that Iowa was going to land Darion Jones. Living in the state of Nebraska, his father played at Nebraska. Nebraska does seem to, they've always recruited well, even when they've been terrible on the field. It's just the name is so big. They have so much donor money. I mean, regardless, they recruit decently well. Now, what that turns into on the field is a different matter entirely. But I thought that he was going to be going to Nebraska. Now, former Rivals contributor Elliot Clow did put in a crystal ball a while ago, multiple months ago, favoring him to go to Iowa. Okay. But things had happened since then. Now, also, I was not aware, but this kid thinks of himself as contrarian. He wants to be different. He wants to be different. Okay. And so apparently he grew up as an Iowa Hawkeye fan in the state of Nebraska. No joke. His words, not mine. So that added an element. And then, of course, it's the DB position. Phil Parker, he seems to have more of a vested interest in recruiting this cycle. It's kind of hit or miss on every recruiting cycle how involved he is or is not. So I still thought he was going to go to Nebraska. On top of that, though, as Nebraska fans like to point out, Nebraska already had a few DB commits as well. So some decently rated guys. Let me see if maybe I can pull it up so I can even see myself. So of course that probably was a factor as well. It's always a factor when it comes to recruiting. But players that are legit players, they don't care who's committed there. If they think you're the right fit and you're the right school, they know that their talent's going to win out regardless. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't a factor, a slight factor, but it's sometimes more of a factor, sometimes less of a factor, depending on the recruit. So they have Danny Odom out of Florida, 4-star, pretty consistently around. They also have Jamal Rule, high 3-star, mid 3-star. I would say pretty consistently high 3-star. They have and that's it. Those two guys. Okay, so I don't think the Nebraska fans are doing it complete justice. I mean, only two commits. I mean, it's not the end of the world. I mean, heck, Iowa already had two commits. Iowa also had a 4-star in Marcello Vitti, and their recent commit, Ronnie Harper, a hidden gem out of the state of Florida. Now, Marcelo is more of a cash slash safety, but still, when it comes to DBs, you never truly know what they're going to develop to at the college level. So, with all that said, I didn't think Iowa had the best chance, but they still had a chance. I probably gave them like a 30% chance, 40% chance. Now, before I go back to him, CJ Hester, I was 99% sure he was going to go to Florida. He was always favored to go to Florida. He's a Florida boy. And from Cocoa. And now, apparently, though, Iowa did make a really strong impression. So he's a name I think to keep an eye on as time goes on, depending on what happens with Florida this upcoming year, what happens with Billy Napier. But according to On3 and the article I read, Iowa was the biggest threat, not Georgia, but Iowa, to steal him from the state of Florida. Now, ultimately, he did choose Florida, and I'm not surprised by that. But, the Phil Parker pitch is quite the pitch. Quite the pitch. But Darion Jones, he committed. This is why I was waiting until today. He committed today, July 4th. He's a high 3-star. This is a great get, guys. Great get. And I'll circle back to that. We'll see what happens with Jeremiah Gray. Iowa does only have one D-line committed, which the last couple of cycles has been the best group. I mean, Kelvin Bell has been recruiting like a madman at the defensive lineman. I mean, Iowa's recruited some of the best D-line classes in the country. Multiple high 3-stars, 4-star guys. I mean, no joke. There's Ronnie Hill right there. Did I say Ronnie Harmon? Ronnie Hill, sorry. But the other aspect, this is the only D lineman that's committed, Sawyer Jazierski. I actually do like him. I think he'll be rated higher than the 85. I think he'll become a high 3-star recruit. But as you guys can see, and there were way more names than just this, but, Preston Friesel, Iowa was supposed to get an official visit, tight end. They didn't even get an official. Notre Dame came in with an offer. He committed. That was probably his dream school, considering he goes to school at a Catholic school, which is somewhat understandable. But again, that's part of the issue with the June 20th. Had Iowa had a June 1st official visit, maybe they would have been able to lock in that commitment. Maybe Notre Dame doesn't look at him as much. Maybe, he's more sold on Iowa, and it's a harder choice to choose Notre Dame, There's even more names that were on the list that aren't here anymore, that we're going to visit, that we're not seeing. Iowa missed on Isaiah McMillan. They missed on Corey House. He went to Michigan State. I thought they had a good chance to land him. Billy Waivoda, linebacker, high 3-star. I again, when I made the previous video, this was part of what I was saying. I didn't think that Iowa was going to land him, because I knew that they had a good chance of landing Cason Thomas, and they had a good chance of landing Julian Manson, which, again, also recently is they were uncommitted when I made the previous video, and now they're committed. Now is taken into account from when taken in consideration that I was much more pessimistic in the previous video. Now I'm much more optimistic, which I will detail. Billy Waivoda, aka Billy Waivoda, aka Billy Waivoda, was uncommitted, and a lot of time had gone by. And sometimes, as fans, we don't truly know what's going on. it says he took an official visit, but did he really? Did things just die out? Did it sputter out? Did Seth Wallace not land with him? Did he see the writing on the wall with two other commits? Because Iowa doesn't really, they pretty much only play with two linebackers now. The other linebacker plays, depending on the game, anywhere from, I would say, 10 to at most 35% of the snaps, at most 40, depending on the team. If it's a more run happy team, if it's a colder game, they want more physicality. It depends. But they got his commitment. Like I said, Iowa landed 4-star Julian Manson, which he was favored for a long time. They landed Kason Thomas, who's a high 3-star, 4-star by On3. So let's look at the commitments here. This is why I'm much more optimistic. And the previous video, I did say that, of course, things were subject to change, and we would see how the coming weeks shook out. But as of recording the previous video, I was pessimistic and concerned. But now, guys, looking at where things stand now, I mean, I feel good about this recruiting class. I do. Iowa started off strong with a 4-star commit in Marcelo Vito or Viti, whatever his name is. Sorry, guys. I'm just terrible. Viti, right here. High 3-star, 4-star. Rivals has him as a 4-star. Well, no, Rivals is gone now. They merged with On3. This is why I think On3 is going to become the preeminent recruiting site. It's pretty much them and 247 Sports. ESPN's still straggling along, but I don't even know why they shouldn't even include the Rivals rating anymore. I don't know exactly what they're going to do with that. I don't know if they're going to keep Rivals open but operating as like a subdivision. I sub entity. I don't know. But high 3-star at the very least. 247 Sports has him as an 89. On3 as an 88. 78 ESPN. 5.8 Rivals. So I'm really liking, Billy Waivoda, 87 by On3, 79 by ESPN, and 5.7 by Rivals. I mean, that's not bad. That's high 3-star right there. The only reason why his grade is an 85.06 here is because On3 doesn't have him, 247 Sports doesn't have him ranked yet. But we'll see what Ronnie Hill is ranked. I think he'll be rated as like a 87 mid 3-star because he's kind of so raw still. But you look at the top end here, Darion Jones, the main commitment today, 88, 89. He's unrated by ESPN, but 5.7. But thankfully, I think ESPN is the lowest percent in the cumulative that they, when they do their cumulative ranking. But, to get him out of the state of Nebraska is huge. And trust me, there's even more talent from the Omaha North pipeline coming out. It's very interesting, by the way, coming from a guy that does not live in the state of Iowa. And I think this is the case in every state. But I think in some of the bigger states, it's more spread out, the Division I talent from high school to high school. But when I look at like Iowa and Nebraska and Kansas, it's always a handful of schools that have all the Division I talent. It's for Iowa, certain classes, it's Dowling Catholic, it's Valley, or Iowa City, or basketball, it's Waukee North. It's always a handful. And for Nebraska, for a while there, the school that Keegan Johnson went to, Bellevue East, I think it was, or Bellevue West, that was the school that all the talent was coming out of. They had Keegan Johnson. They had, his brother. They had the tight end that went to Auburn, that Micah Riley Duckers or Ducker or whatever his name is, that Iowa, a lot of fans, he was favored to go to Iowa, but ultimately chose Auburn in the Kuth year. So, but now it's Omaha North. Now it's a few different schools. I haven't really seen a lot of Bellevue West guys recently. Anyways, yes, it was Bellevue West, but that's just something I've noticed in some of these Midwestern states. I think some of these other states like Illinois, a little bit more populous. Michigan, it's a little bit more spread out, but even there, it's especially in Michigan and Detroit, it's pretty much the same schools. But so, anyways, guys, all this considered, the recent commits of Julian Manson, Kason Thomas, who again four-star by On3, high 3-star by the rest. Darion Jones, Billy Voda, Ronnie Hill. The recruiting class is in a good spot. They have, let's see how many, they have 14 commits. They do have some walk-on commits as well, preferred walk-ons. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with that, as the NCAA seemingly has gone back and forth with that. It's kind of BS, to tell you the truth, because Iowa lost some talent because of all that, but I digress. But yeah, things stand well. Things look well. Were there some guys at some positions like quarterback, tight end, defensive line that Iowa they would have benefited from landing? Of course. So just to wrap this up, and by the way, guys, I'm going to have some more videos coming up down the line, probably in the next couple days as I have some time away from work. I'm not going to say them because I don't want people to copy my ideas. You know who. But just stay keyed in. No, I'm just kidding. But stay locked in. Your boy's going to have you covered. But I think the offensive line for Iowa is solid. Could they maybe use one more piece if it's like a super highly ranked offensive tackle, or a guy that maybe is like such a hidden gem that Iowa does not want to pass up on and is a pure offensive tackle? Yes. Because really the only pure offensive tackle that they have in this class is in-stater Carson Nielsen, or aka Carson Nielsen. But the other guys like Hudson Parliament is more of an inside, possibly center, interior offensive lineman. Gene Riordan, I think, could play both inside and outside at 6'5". That's assuming that all these heights are correct. I mean, they are listed as interior offensive linemen, and of course, usually these recruiting sites are fairly accurate. Because they do have like verifying protocols put into place. But still, Owen Linder is a tweener as well, which Iowa does kind of recruit a decent amount of tweeners at the guard position. They recruit guys that are in that 6'5", 6'6" range that could maybe play tackle, could maybe play guard. Bo Stevens reminds me of that. For a while they were thinking of what Jennings Dunker was going to be. Most recently Mason Richmond as well. It kind of goes back and forth until finally they're like, no, you're a tackle. No, so I could see that the offensive line. I can see Iowa maybe taking one more guy that's under the radar, or a guy that just suddenly pops open, that's a pure tackle that they take, or a guy that they see as a pure center, and they're recruiting as a center that they don't want to pass on. But Iowa does have a lot of guys coming up that they've landed. I think they're in good shape at the center position. And the center position is very hard to prognosticate and project. So I think Iowa's in good shape at the DB position. That's been a position of focus in this recruiting class. and I think that's been the case specifically because of Iowa's lack of production last year at the DB position. But I think Iowa's recruited the DB position relatively well. It just maybe last year it didn't end up as some hope, but hopefully they have a bounce back year this year as some of the guys, that prize recruiting class of Xavier Wampa, Deshaun Lee, and Cohen Entringer finally, as well as the TJ Hall. They've had varying levels of success. Hopefully, all of them can, fully sprout and have a penultimate season. But so I think the DB position is in good shape. We'll see what Ronnie Hill projects into. He's kind of a tweener. He's listed as a safety, 6'1". That's kind of what Phil Parker recruits a lot of guys that have the height and length to play safety, but could also play cornerback based on their speed. But I think they're in good shape there. They might take maybe one more pure corner, maybe pure safety, because I think Marcelo Vitti is more of a cash. But that's kind of where we're at with that. They do need more defensive linemen. Not a lot. They've been recruiting that position really well, but of course, Iowa has made a concerted effort to be extremely deep and extremely functional and extremely talented at the defensive line position in the last couple of years. I mean, they just reload and reload and reload. And I think it's smart. That in the offensive line should be your main positions that you're, especially if you're Iowa, that you're supremely talented year in, year out at. Wide receiver, Iowa has two. They missed out on an outside receiver to Northwestern that they were favored to. I think they could take one more wide receiver. They don't necessarily need to, but if there's a guy that they really like, I think it would be preferable for it to be an outside guy. But they did land Terrence Smith in the previous recruiting class. I think it's just kind of a situation where you just keep your eyes peeled for a playmaker. If there's a guy that, whether he's an inside guy, an outside guy, or X, Z, Y, it doesn't matter. If he's a guy that's a playmaker, can add some speed or some tangible trait to your offense, then you take him. But they do have two guys that they like that are, mid to high 3-star guys, more inside, maybe Z and Brody Schaefer type guys. Oh, I forgot about Colin Witters as well on the interior offensive line. He's another guy that might be a center based on his wrestling background. So I think Iowa is pretty set at the offensive line position. They have 1, 2, 3, 4. They have 5 guys. I'd be really surprised if they took another. I was quite frankly surprised when they landed Gene Riordan. But credit to Iowa's offensive line coach. He's been working hard to land some talent. I think Iowa's probably good at the linebacker position. They got 3. Not probably, they are good. Maybe they take a guy that's like a tweener that could maybe play cash or linebacker, but not a pure linebacker. They don't need any more of that. They have 3 guys already, and you risk losing the 3 talented guys that you already have. Well, I did find this for Ronnie Hill, according to Alan Trieu of 247 Sports. They do have him coming in as cornerback, but he also could end up playing free safety. I mean, that's kind of the case for a lot of these recruits. They're all really athletic. It's all going to depend on the weight that they put on in college once they get into the Iowa Strength and Conditioning program, and kind of how they continue or don't continue to grow. Very few guys are like hard and fast. This is what they're going to be. For the most part, you have an idea of what they're going to be and what side of the ball they're going to play on. And yes, Iowa does have a vision that they sell to the players, but again, it's not all 100% set in stone. So, but again, I like where Iowa's recruiting class is at. Yeah, it's going to be up to Iowa to hold on to them. Again, I think they're good at linebacker. I think Sorry, guys. I paused the video, then I came back, so I was trying to jostle back where I was at. I think Iowa does need to find a tight end. They did do really well in the previous recruiting class with Mason Woods, Eli Johnson, and Thomas Meyer. I mean, that's a really, really solid group of tight ends, and a lot of people are saying that the tight end position is going bust in the Tim Lester offense. I don't think that that's true. I think that he's going to continue to use them as much, maybe not, but they're still going to be utilized. It'd be silly for Iowa to totally get rid of a position that they so keenly are able to grab talent at. I mean, can you see what have you ever seen what a decent tight end can do? I mean, they can move the chains for you. They can be a huge weapon for you. So, in security blanket. So, but in this recruiting class, we'll see what happens with Mason Woods, whether he moves to the wide receiver position or moves to tight end. I kind of see him and Iowa's need more so at wide receiver. He was listed at 6'1". I think that that's kind of small for a tight end, but crazier things have happened. Now, if he's in the 6'2", 6'3" range, that's a little bit different. That's about where George Kittle's at. So, but uh, Iowa is not like urgently in need of tight end in this recruiting class, but they do need a tight end. So they're probably keeping their eyes peeled for a late bloomer, a basketball guy that's 6'5". That's kind of the guys that Iowa continuously, unless they're able to get a guy early, that is a guy that's been coveted for a while now. So they do need a running back. Last I heard was that the new running back coach um, was in on a player from the state of Georgia. That was a new name. I haven't heard anything about that further. So time will tell with that. Again, the running back position is a very relational business. I'm sure he's keeping his ears to the ground, using his connections to find an under the radar guy. Maybe there's a kid that they're able to flip, later down the line. I just Iowa needs to take advantage of the recent success that Caleb Johnson had, and likely Kamari Moulton's about to have. They need to continue to utilize on the shoulders of that success and really bring it home, because it's not too often that you're able to utilize the recent success of a star player at a position to continue to land more talent at that position. So they need to do that. They need to levy this into landing and landing some talent, or at the very least getting into some rooms that maybe they wouldn't have been able to get into had Caleb Johnson not been at Iowa. Now, the problem is that, again, the position group is so relational that it's kind of a situation that now that Liddell Betts left, Iowa might have to start from ground one. So, but running back's a position. I think one, maybe two if they like to, but I think one would probably be fine. The cupboard's pretty full. But yeah, D-line, tight end, running back, and of course quarterback. Iowa needs to find a quarterback. And this is going to be the last thing that I say because I don't want this video to be too long. The quarterback position has fundamentally changed in college football. And I said this in my video detailing Cash Herrera's decommitment. Yes, if you're Iowa, you do still want to recruit out of high school well and develop well if you can. However, the bottom line is kids just are not waiting. A lot of kids, especially if they had a decent amount of offers coming out of high school, they are jumping ship in order to get on the field as soon as possible and get that tape out there as soon as possible. So, it's like, yeah, it'd be nice for Iowa to land a guy like Cash Herrera, even better. But will they be able to hold on to him in this day and age? The chances are not very good, just to be honest. And so I say that to merely say, not that Iowa's out of luck, but that Tim Lester has obviously proven that you can rebuild a quarterback room in the transfer portal, which he has done. So it's not the end all be all for Iowa to land a super highly rated, guy that we all love coming out of high school. He needs to just find a guy that he's okay with, that he thinks has the tools that he can develop, and that's pretty much it. I thought Cash Ferreira was definitely a solid pick. I don't think Indiana is a better school than Iowa. I know that they had recent success, but still, I mean, over the longevity of Indiana football, not really. But that's his choice. Maybe he liked the offensive system more. So, but I just want you guys to keep that in mind when it comes to the quarterback position. Like, it's yes, you do want to land a guy out of high school, but it's not always. You don't always necessarily have to. Will Iowa do that? Yes, probably. They will probably, at the very least, land a guy that's super underrated, under recruited, just to get a guy on scholarship that they can develop and so on and so on. But I don't think it's out of the realm of a possibility for them to say, nope, we're going to hold on to this and we're going to see what talent is out there, especially young talent is out there on the transfer portal, and hold on to this scholarship spot. If there's not a guy that Tim Lester likes, I mean, don't be surprised by that. That's just, you have to view it from the perspective of roster building, and the college football is becoming much more like the NFL in terms of roster construction, uh, money, NIL money, how these players get on the roster, what makes them be a part of the roster, the motivations for them choosing Iowa. That's why a lot of schools are hiring general managers to literally consider these things and try to have the most optimal roster possible. And roster, as far as the roster construction goes. So it's just, at the end of the day, the old playbook is out. Okay. Is everything out of the playbook gone? No, not necessarily, but by and large, it's gone. And you need to get into the frame of mind that things are just much different now. Many more ways to skin the cat, the proverbial cat. And so, just be open minded to that. But I do think, if I had to guess, based on what Iowa likes to do, what Kirk likes to do, I think they probably will land a quarterback in the high school ranks as well. With that said, though, again, running back, they might land another wide receiver, preferably an ex wide receiver, but not the end all be all. At the end of the day, they just need a playmaker that makes the room better in some tangible way. Tight end and D lineman. They probably need at least two more D linemen in this class. So, and they're at 14, I believe it is, and On3 has them ranked as 31st, which I think, as some guys get ranked by all the recruiting services, that'll go up to maybe 29th. All right, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned for some more content that I will be putting out there here rather soon. And of course, be sure to like, comment, share, and most importantly, subscribe. Let's get this channel to 2,000 subscribers. And last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy willow. In fact, our feelings, because your feelings just matter. I love you, Hawk fans. Hope you guys are having a fantastic 4th of July. Stay safe. And of course, go Hawks. Bye-bye.